Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Elizabeth Engler-Modick, editor of GIE Media's manufacturing group of magazines, and I'm excited for everyone to join us for today's webinar. Your presenters are Florence Joffroy-Black, CEO, President, and Founder of MedWorld Advisors, and Dave Sheppard, Managing Director and Co-founder of MedWorld Advisors. And they are the authors of today's Medical Developments MedTech Mindset monthly column. MedWorld Advisors is comprised of expert merger and acquisition professionals, from advisors to M&A lawyers to past CEOs who have grown and sold companies, as well as key executives in Fortune 500 companies. A dynamic team with backgrounds in M&A, finance, strategic marketing, strategic alliances, and R&D, with a proven track record of generating growth in both the U.S. and abroad. Now, before we head into the topic, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Big Kaiser Precision Tooling. Big Kaiser's mission is to find the best of the best and deliver it to the customers with a personal commitment of helping them install truly efficient solutions. Big Kaiser has exceptionally high standards for the products they represent, resulting in an all-star lineup of products that deliver true and measurable performance advantages. Products are engineered to exacting standards and manufactured with materials and craftsmanship that enable superior performance. Big Kaiser delivers the most accurate and efficient tooling solutions, guaranteed. Ceratizit. Within the Ceratizit group is Team Cutting Tools. They are your expert for cutting tools by offering all products and services of the former companies Comet, WNT, and Clank, as well as the brand Cutting Solutions by Ceratizit. As a full-range supplier, Ceratizit is an internationally leading supplier in the cutting tool industry. Whether turning, drilling, milling, parting, boring, spinning, or clamping, you will find a wide selection of innovative, state-of-the-art products for every area of application with 99% delivery availability. Kyocera SGS Precision Tools. KSPT is a manufacturer of industry-leading round solid carbide cutting tools. KSPT is proud to have pioneered some of the world's most advanced cutting tool technologies, resulting from rigorous product coding and material testing within its Global Innovation Center. KSPT is commitment to the innovation that has launched patented products and technologies. KSPT technical sales engineers, application specialists, and distribution partners blanket the globe, delivering reliable service and support to all market segments. Makino. As the industry leader in machinery design and digital innovation, Makino introduces game-changing solutions for premium performance. Makino produces the most accurate and highest quality metal cutting and EDM machines, horizontal machining centers, vertical machining centers, 5-axis machining centers, graphite machining centers, and wire and sinker EDMs. With deep-seated engineering expertise, Makino helps you understand installation and setup and optimizes processes to bring out the best in your machine and your operations. And when you need help right away, Makino's 24/7 customer service hotline is staffed by highly qualified Makino service technicians. And Reed Supply, a premier provider of more than 40,000 industrial components to manufacturers throughout North America. Reed Supply serves customers in a variety of industries, offering a comprehensive line of quality industrial components and a broad range of clamps and work holding products, knobs, handles, and hand wheels, tooling and positioning components, and feet casters and vibration mounts. Reed Supply continually expands its catalog with innovative new products and provides helpful product support from the company's knowledgeable customer service team, in-house engineering staff, and expert manufacturing representatives. And finally, we will gladly take questions that you may have for Florence and Dave, and you can simply type them into the Q&A tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will get to as many as possible. Flo, the Zoom window is all yours to start the presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you for the introduction, and we truly appreciate your invitation to present today the anatomy of an M&A deal. Some of you may know us from a webinar that we did last year with you, actually, that related to a deal that we did with GE in the time of COVID. And today we thought it would be a good idea to actually talk about what it actually takes to get a deal together and make it successful. So I know Elizabeth introduced us a little bit, but a quick little background on Dave and I as we'll be presenting to you today. As Elizabeth mentioned, I am Florence Joffroy-Black. I'm the CEO of MedWorld Advisors. If you hear an accent while I talk, it's because I'm actually from Paris, France. This is where I was born and raised, and I have been in the US for quite a while, but my entire professional life has been done at a global level. I've worked for large strategic companies as well as startups and private equity firms. Dave?
Thank you, Florence. Pleasure to be here, and thank you for joining us on this webinar. I essentially, as you can tell from my background, came originally from California. So I have some nice memories of going across the Golden Gate Bridge. And a bridge is also kind of a nice thing when you think about M&A and how you can connect things. I've been blessed with an international career for over more years than I wanted to mention right now, as you can tell by my gray hair. But I've been involved with many multinational companies and involved in mergers and acquisitions from the Fortune 500 side. Got to learn a lot about M&A through that process, and had a chance to do acquisitions, had a chance to do distribution licensing deals, and be helped to also commercialize products across the globe. And it's been an exciting career for me, and now I'm grateful to be partnered with Florence to help clients that are smaller companies, middle market companies, early stage companies, to be able to be on the other side of the table and share our experience to help people get successful deals done.
Wonderful.
We're based in Boston, but we have a global network. We also have a legal entity in Hong Kong, in China, that we have a managing director over there. And then we have collaboration partners throughout the world that focus on different geographies and also different market segments within medical. However, what we do is focus 100% within the healthcare industry. This slide gives a little bit of a background in terms of the team that we have at MedWorld Advisors. Many people are experienced executives like ourselves, and through our work in our professional roles in Fortune 500 companies, and also at our work in our time in MedWorld Advisors, we've been able to, this is a list of companies that we've actually done deals with as a team around the world. So from Israel to Japan to China, Europe, and US and South America. very global team, and the work we do is also international.
Wonderful. So let's go to the subject of the day, the anatomy of an M&A deal. And we always put a little bit of humor into our presentations. And so you will see cartoons here and there along the way. This one actually is really a good example. People think that going through a deal making is actually fairly simple, and it's going to be kind of a no big deal. And the reason actually why we created MedWorld Advisors is to really help people who actually think that it's going to be that easy. After working for Fortune 500 companies and private equity firms, what we realized is that when we were talking to potential sellers of their business, usually smaller companies, we came in with big teams. We had a lot of resources on our end, and we were talking to people who on the other side really didn't know how to navigate the waters. And we realized that it was actually not good for either us as a strategic or private equity firm, and it wasn't good for the people that were looking to be acquired. And so we decided to create MedWorld Advisors to bridge the gap, bridge again, as they've mentioned, to make sure that at the end of the day, when two companies become one, it's a win-win for both parties. So
we actually now have companies that are the financial buyers that make a lot of acquisitions actually will tell us that they will prefer sometimes when a client is working with us, because we understand the process and they feel like the company that they're buying is actually a little more prepared because they've been working with an advisor like ourselves, and that kind of just speaks to the kind of work that needs to be done to help the seller get the maximum value, which is really what it's all about. Somebody has worked very hard to be able to grow your business. If you're an owner out there thinking about selling your business, or if you're a startup thinking about where you take it to the next few years, it's a lot of work. We've been there, we know that, and we understand it, and you deserve to get the value out of it. And so it's helpful to be able to do it right in order to be able to maximize that value and that opportunity.
Absolutely. So as we're going to go into further details, again, it's anatomy of M&A from A to Z. we thought that it would be a good idea to come up with a couple of statements and see, what your thought process would be. And so I'll ask the questions and Dave will answer the questions. So the first one would be, selling a profitable business is easy.
And that's a great statement to make, and it's often a perception of a potential seller that they'll read about another business in the industry that's sold, and if it's big enough to be sold, and the valuation is stated publicly. Sometimes they're not, but when they are, it's easy to say, oh, well, my company is worth the same thing, so it's going to be easier to sell it for that amount. It's not always the case. So it's very helpful to really understand the process and where your business might stand relative to a potential valuation before you get started, because so much about being successful in whatever you do is about expectations. So you want to be able to start by setting your own expectations for what you think is important for you, and it's also realistic so that you can be able to achieve it as well. And so profitable companies are going to be more likely to be sold than non-profitable companies. However, at the same time, there's a lot more that goes into it relative to, okay, you're profitable today, but what does your pipeline look for the future? What does your R&D pipeline look like? What does your sales pipeline look like? What is your setup with your IP? Are there any threats out there? There's a lot that needs to be captured to make sure that a buyer is going to have the same certainty about your future that you do. Because obviously you're operating your business, you have a very comfort with your business, and you're confident that it's going to go forward as you should. But a new buyer coming into it needs to feel that same certainty. And it takes a little bit of working with them to get them to that same place with you. And you want them to really just see the business as you see it. And that's when you're going to maximize your opportunity, because you're bullish about it and you want them to be as well. So it's not always easy to get them to that place, but it certainly can be done.
The process of selling my company starts when I hire an M&A advisor. That's a statement that we hear quite often. Is that true or false, Dave?
Yeah, and in that case, sometimes if somebody's under the gun, that is true. However, that's not the preferred timing or the way to maximize an opportunity for a seller. The best thing for a seller to be thinking about, we do other discussions and seminars and presentations, and we really talk about when you start your company, think with the end in mind. And so really when you start your company is when you should be thinking about when you're going to start selling, when you're going to be selling your company, even if that's 20 years from now. You ought to be setting up the company from the beginning, thinking about what would happen if this company needs to be sold. You think about that in terms of the IP that you want to generate, in terms of the team that you want to build, the kind of market segments that you want to be, the reimbursement rates for the kind of products that you have, all of that. So it really starts around you, but it certainly doesn't end with you, because if your business is so dependent upon you that you cannot be there, it's harder for somebody else to come in and buy your company. So it does start with you to be thinking about it, whether it's 10 years from now, 5 years, 3 years, or next year. And then you want to figure out, okay, what do I need to be successful, and how do I partner with the right people, either externally, your accountants, lawyers, and M&A advisors, and your core team to make this successful. But you need to think that through as soon as possible, as soon as you start your company, if you can.
It's a seller's market if you're in healthcare. True or false?
It's likely. If in 2021, healthcare, it's a very bullish market for buyers. There's a lot of what's called stickiness relative to revenue in healthcare. If you get customers in healthcare and you service them well, you're likely to maintain them and grow them. And then there's continuing, because there is an aging population of people like myself that need more healthcare. When I was half my age, I didn't even know who my doctors were, and now I know them by their first name. So it's things change, and so we all have more of a need for healthcare, and that demographic is there, and so it's going to continue. There's more money being spent in healthcare around the world, and that creates opportunity. And what's interesting about the market today is it's growing in terms of devices. It's also growing in terms of pharma. It's growing into hybrid devices, drug delivery devices, and it's also growing in terms of digital solutions in really amazing and interesting ways that are enabling technology to be able to deliver more to improve outcomes, which is really exciting for our future. So, if you're in the if you're a seller in the healthcare market, yes, you're likely to be in the seller's market.
I can take it easy once the process of selling starts.
I wish, if only that could be true. So it becomes once a process starts and you've committed to it, sellers find out that it's a very active process. A good team around you between your M&A advisor and your accountants and your core team can help you. But at the end of the day, it's going to be something that you're doing in addition to your regular job, because your number one job is still to run your company to make sure that it's sustainable for whoever would come in and to buy it. And then you need to play a role in collaborating with whoever you're working with to sell the company, whether it's your team or an M&A advisor. In our case, some of our best successes where we maximize the value with the client is really where we partner with the CEO or the founder of the company, and we really partner about the strategy, and we partner in terms of we'll carry a lot of the process execution, but it's really a collaboration in terms of what that strategy is and what do we want to achieve at the end. And then it just takes some execution on the business side to make sure that the diligence preparation is there. So while we're doing a lot of the process activity to get buyers involved, the business has to be prepared for the fact to assure the buyer that really what we say is there is really going to be there. And that goes beyond when your everyday business is things that have happened in the last year, the last 2 years, 3 years. Buyers just want to know what's happened so they understand your company completely before they execute the process. So it becomes a lot of work. It becomes very worthwhile, but it can be a lot of work.
I know exactly what my business is worth.
That's an interesting concept. I think a lot of people would hope that they know what their business is worth, and if you study it a little bit, I think you can have some idea of some ranges of what your business could be worth. But it can change from year to year. It can change, and there's so many factors that impact it. It's probably good to talk to people in the market as you're thinking about it, and really just even if you're not going to sell for 2 or 3 years, just be thinking every year about what that's like and what can impact. There's an intrinsic value for your business that you should be thinking about. What are the key things I can do to make sure that my business is worth the most in any market? And then what's going to happen is beyond that is the market each year is going to have different multiple values depending upon buyers' availability of cash. In the financial world, they call it dry powder, or based upon the strategic interest of some of the strategic companies in the industry and what they need. And at the end of the day, the market really does set the price. And what we really say at MedWorld Advisors is that value equals your strategic fit for your company, strategic fit and timing. Value equals strategic fit plus timing.
And if you were to think, if I may add, Dave, a perfect example would be the world of ventilation, in 2019, 2020, and where we are today, would actually tell you that the value of those companies really did change throughout the process throughout those 3 years. And it was really based on the strategic fit and the timing of what COVID, for example, provided. I don't need an M&A advisor. I'm sorry, did you want to add something, Dave?
No, I just wanted to say that was a great example.
Good. I don't need an M&A advisor.
And that can be true. There are some experienced entrepreneurs that have been through this before, and I really have some respect for some people that they've built a company, sold it, they've built another one, sold it, built it. They got a lot of experience with it. But in most cases, a lot of sellers, this may be once, they may sell their company once or maybe twice. So it's not something that they do every day. And so there is a lot of opportunity that as far as how value can be created by working with a professional M&A advisor who can really help you put together the strategy for your process and how your company should be positioned in with potential buyers, and there's different types of buyers in your space and adjacent spaces, financial buyers, and be able to give you the best chance to get the most out of your business at the time that you would sell it.
Wonderful. Thank you. So Dave, if you're looking at the timeline of what an M&A deal is, can you walk us through, what the perception is and what the reality happens to be?
Yeah. So in terms of M&A deal itself, it really is it's a process. So there's an art to M&A, and then there's a science around M&A, and the science really is the process itself. Every deal will go through a similar type of process, However, there will be a lot of dynamics that are involved that can be different in 2020, like in the middle of a pandemic, than be available in 2021 and in the middle of a year where a lot of people in the US anyways are trying to sell their companies. If they're thinking about selling, trying to sell it now before taxes might change with the new administration in 2022. So it's really important, but the process still will stay the same, but the dynamics around it will change. And so you have to follow the process to be able to maximize your opportunity for success and maximize your opportunity for your value. And it really doesn't just start the day that you decide to hire somebody like MedWorld Advisors. It really can start before that.
So to add to what Dave was saying there, what he was referring to was once you've hired actually an M&A advisor, there's a process, and we'll go to this throughout our presentation. But as we mentioned earlier, it really starts early.
And so, as we discussed in one of the previous slides, it should start if you have a business today and you haven't thought about selling your business, even though you're not actively thinking about selling it this year, next year, you still should be thinking about selling your business in the future, what that would look like, and have your business strategically thought about at the point that it would need to be sold. Are you going to be where you want it to be? It's very important for all businesses to be prepared, because different things can happen in the marketplace or can happen in your life. And it's just more helpful to be ready than not. And then before you hire an M&A advisor, you also don't want to just rely on an M&A advisor. You want to rely on other respected professionals that you might have that in your network, people that have sold another business before, get their opinions. You realize that their experience was their experience. So there might not everything will apply, but some of the things will apply, and some of the things that really are helpful are some of the things that they go through in terms of the emotion of selling your business, and that can really kind of prepare you for that as you go through it. And then if you decide that you do want to hire a professional, you want to go through a process of hiring an M&A advisor. If you know Dave or Florence, yes, we would welcome you to call us and hire us tomorrow, but talk to a few people and get some different ideas. It's got to be a good fit. Like we mentioned earlier, the best values, the best outcomes that we've got is where we partner, what's a good fit on both sides, where we have a meeting in the minds about what the process is going to look like, where the companies can be positioned, and it really needs to be a good relationship on both sides for that to be successful. And then once you're engaged with that advisor, or if you just choose not to, either way, you got to start thinking about the process itself. So you want to kick off the process. You want to formally think about it. You want to get into what we think about is a period of pre-diligence. What's going to happen when people start to come in and look in my closets and check under my hood and check the back rooms and talk to my employees, talk to my customers? What are they going to learn? Is that going to be helpful to my process of selling a business? Is that going to be helpful to my value, or is it not? And if it's not, this is the time to address those types of things, because you would rather learn that yourself in pre-diligence than you would want to learn that when you actually get into you have a nice offer for your company, and then you're in a real diligence period, and all of a sudden there's some negative things that come up about your company, and that can start to be used against you, to negotiate against you, to lose value. And that's something you just don't want to have happen. Then after that, you go into thinking about who your potential buyers might be. And every business is a little bit different, so this can be a little bit unique to each company. And what we like to look at is, okay, we want to think about, okay, naturally, I think the first thing people think about, some of my competitors might want to buy me because they want to take me out. That's probably, if you're a good company, that's probably true, that they do want to take you out. So that's a good place to think about. You want to think about other companies in your market segments. And then also there's other companies that may want to be in your market segment that are not in your market segment. So this could be a nice adjacent space for them. And so there's some of the strategic buyers that you can think about. And then you think in terms of financial buyers. There's a lot of good companies out there right now that are investing in healthcare. And some are PE firms, some are financial companies. Like there's a lot of variety of them. There's some holding companies. There's a lot of mix today between holding companies, private equity companies, VC firms. There used to be all very separated. Some of them are becoming kind of hybrid models and put together. But the bottom line is there's a lot of potential acquirers for your company, and you want to be thinking about in advance who those companies can be, and so that when you're reaching out to them. You know who they are, and you know how you want to speak with them. And part of that is being able to put together a good material for the process. Like, for example, putting together what's called a SIM, which is a confidential information memorandum, and put together what's called the teaser. Some people call it a one-pager, and basically this is ways to document your business and give somebody information about it when they haven't heard about your company. And sometimes their first outreach might be on a basis where they actually wouldn't know it's your company, that positions your company without sharing your actual name, but they get an idea of what the kind of acquisition could be, see if they're interested before you would reveal your company's name. So there's a lot of that involved in terms of that part of the process. And then you want to think about, okay, what is my value? And you don't want to get stuck on, because you read that Joe Smith or Mary Jane sold their business last year to somebody for $30 million in my market segment, that's exactly what you're going to get, because there's so many variables that can be there relative to growth rates and different things. So think it through, prepare some assessments, talk to your accountant about that, talk to your lawyer if they've done transactions, they can give you some ideas, and talk to your M&A advisor about that. And then be prepared that, as we mentioned before, the market is dynamic. And then we move targets through to the NDA stage, so then we can share more information about them. And then once from there, we move into getting LOI offers. Sometimes you might start with an IOI instead of an LOI. IOI is an indication of interest, but then you might move to an LOI, a letter of intent. And then from there, you might have some negotiations with different partners. You want to get to know them better. They might want to get to know you better. And then you want to select an exclusive partner to be able to buy your business. And that would lead towards a due diligence, as we mentioned. And then that would lead towards a transaction. And then Florence's special, was near and dear to her heart, is post-transaction integration. One of the things that Florence worked on in her career was when Draeger bought the patient monitoring business from Siemens, and that was a big, major undertaking, and that had to be put together. And Florence was part of the team that helped to make that happen and it be integrated successfully, which later, even today, is still a major part of Draeger's business. And that's what you want, is not just to sell your business, but you want to sell your business, and you want a legacy to move on that even 3 to 5 years from now, both parties were happy with what the outcome is relative to that.
Absolutely, and that's even more important, as we'll talk about, depending on the deal structure that you end up with. What happens after you're sold still might represent a lot of value and a lot of money for a seller. So we'll talk about this in a little while. So if we really look at the entire continuum that Dave just went over, if we look at some of the more specific things that have to happen when you start early and you are a seller, the things that have to happen, they have to happen very early on. And we mentioned 3 to 5 years ahead of you wanting to be sold is really when you need to start thinking of, do I really want to sell or don't I? What are the things that are important to me as a person? What do I want out of it? But your goals are not necessarily just personal. They also could be, what happens to my company? What happens to those employees that have helped me, grow my company for the last 20, 30, 40 years, or the people that have partnered with me and helped me along the way? When do I really need to get started? When do I really need to get to be sold? As they mentioned, right now, we, really are busy with clients who wanted to get out prior to the end of the year. And that's definitely an important timeline that they've put as a decision to sell. So things that like this don't happen overnight. They really start early. And the reason why we said they also start early is, as a seller, there are a lot of things that one has to do. And one of the things that's very important is to gather materials. Throughout the life of a company, you're going to generate a lot of documents based on decisions. So think of the way you actually decide to create your company. Are you an LLC? Are you an S Corp? Are you a C Corp? Who are your partners? Well, all of this ends up having to be filed. You have paperwork that's involved. You have board meetings that take place. You have to take notes. You have to file all of this. Let's talk about you growing your business over a number of years. You're going to have a lot of decisions that are made and a lot of documents that are going to have to be created. They can be financial. They can be about suppliers. They can be about your customers. There are a lot of things that come into play when you run a business. And so it's going to take a lot of time for you to understand where that information is and then start gathering it. That will be very important when you start selling. Dave mentioned a step in the process called due diligence. That's when all those documents are really going to have to come into play and they have to be made available. And so it's important as you're talking about, trying to figure out when you want to be sold and you're starting the process personally, to talk to the people that you're also working with. Accountants, they are the ones who really understand what your financial picture looks like. They also are the ones that have the records of everything that you've done. Lawyers, if you have one, talk to them, tell them you're trying to potentially start looking at an exit. What are the things that you should be doing? Again, that lawyer will be able to help you understand if there's anything that you need to change or things that you need to be aware of before you actually put yourself on the market. And then, as Dave mentioned, if you know someone who sold a business, start understanding what it looks like and what it feels like for a seller to actually go through this. It takes time. Selling a business does not happen overnight. And so the earlier you start, the better. And that's the thing that you kind of do on your own. But then as you get closer in the timeline in trying to figure out what your next step is, also start to understand, once you've looked at all of those partners that you have, lawyers, accountants, and your materials, what is it going to take for you and your organization to actually be sold? And so it's a question of looking at your organization internally and say, who are the people I'm going to be able to trust to help me go from where I am today to actually be successfully sold? Not all your company needs to be involved. Actually, very often, the better is when you don't have everybody involved, because there are a lot of, things that will happen to your companies. If the marketplace is aware of the fact that you're up for sale, it allows your competitors to come in and, potentially go and talk to your customers and say, hey, that company is going to change hands, so don't bother, just work with me. So you're going to create a very specific pool of people that you're going to trust throughout the process. And you need to make sure that those people are involved in the success of the transaction. And so looking at actually rewarding them along the way is going to be very important to keep them engaged. It is not an easy process. It's not fast. And so you're going to make sure that they stay with you and they stay the course to make sure that you're successful. And then try to figure out what else you're going to need for support, because that's going to be important in the success. And then before you actually hire an M&A advisor, start developing relationships. We have a lot of phone calls from people who just ask us questions, or we meet them and we've known them for 4 or 5 years or even more before they actually decide to come and hire us. And that's actually what it should be. You have to understand and trust the people that you're going to be working with, and building relationships with those people is going to be very key in the decisions that you make.
So Florence, if you could go back just for a minute. The trusted team. I just want to park on that just for a minute, because that really is important. What you mentioned there, it's so critical to the success of a business. I think every business owner knows that you're as good as the team you have around you to be successful in serving your customers. Also, when you sell your business, and correct, you don't want your whole company to know in many cases that you're doing that, because some people actually might leave because they have some insecurity of that. But there is a core team around you that you probably do want to know that is part of it, because you're going to need to lean on them to help you sell the business. And so it's better to get them involved early and thinking about how they can help you take some of the activities on to be able to be successful in doing so. And the other part is, if you really want to maximize the value of your business, it can't just all be about you as the owner. It's got to be about your team, because what do people want to buy is they want to buy team. And so the more that your team is involved and they can be working with the potential buyers and show how active they are, it can really create a lot of value for your business. And the other thing I'll mention, going back to the previous slide, as far as around lawyers, definitely on your lawyer that you're using now, to ask them for advice. However, if they don't have a lot of transaction experience, definitely when you get to the stage of when you actually get into a sale process, start to think about finding a lawyer with transaction experience, because it can save you a lot of time. They'll be expensive for a month or two, but they'll be worth it, because they'll be able to save you a lot of time and potential risk down the road by helping you get a successful transaction done. And if you don't have one that's a transaction lawyer, talk to an M&A advisor like us, because we can help recommend a good one to you. Before we go on to the next slide, Florence, I'm noticing that we have a couple of questions. One of them I'm trying to understand, so maybe I wanted to get it out early, so I make sure we do understand it correctly. So what is the M&A around companies that work with DoD? As I'm assuming DoD means Department of Defense, but if I don't have that right, I welcome the clarification. And so as a Department of Defense, obviously, is well known as the DoD has a lot of money. It's they're hard to work with. It's hard to get into. So if you have a company that has a good relationship with the DoD and that's part of your customer base, and it's recurring revenue stream, that is going to add some value to your business. Absolutely. And then the second question coming from that same person was about expanding your business to B2B and possibly through a franchise. B2B is very sought after because when you're a B2B company, there can be a lot of sustainability. So you're not dealing with a fickle consumer. You're dealing with businesses, and if you're set up to do that, that actually can be something that can be viewed as sustainable. What buyers like is sustainability. They like certainty, so that can be very positive for you. As far as going through a franchise, if you've been able to prove that a franchise model works, there definitely is value in that because that becomes a scalable model. And that's really what buyers love, to put growth capital into scalable models. So if that's what you're asking, I'm hoping I'm answering that the right way for you. But we can go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. And thank you for asking questions. It's great. We welcome all of them. So Dave?
So on the next one, in terms about hiring an M&A advisor, I'll just be quick on this one. Bottom line is, like I mentioned earlier, do your research. Don't just talk to the Dave or Flo, but talk to a few people, get to know what their process is. You'll learn from everybody you talk to about what their process is, how they think about it, and then you'll be able to make an informed decision. And it needs to be somebody that you have confidence in that can handle a process, and then also that you feel like you're going to be able to work with, and then also make sure that if you're talking to a Dave or Florence at MedWorld Advisors, or if you were talking, we have Daniel and we have another Florence and then we have an Estelle and then we have a David and Jeremy and all those people. Whoever it is that you're talking to and you like that person that you're working with, make sure that if whoever you're talking to, that person's going to stay involved with your deal if you engage them, because sometimes we hear that sometimes people will hire somebody because they got a nice presentation from somebody at a high level in a firm, but then that's not who actually stayed with them. So if you talk to me, make sure that I'm going to stay with you, and so on and so forth.
Wonderful. With that said, Dave does have a team that supports him as well. So yep. I'll make sure that I mentioned that. Okay, so actually in looking at hiring an M&A advisor, taking what Dave started talking about a little bit further, when you're talking to a potential M&A advisor, don't hold back. Ask all the questions that you have. And there should be absolutely no question that you cannot ask. That whatever you have in mind needs to have an answer for you to feel comfortable in hiring the right M&A advisor. So take your time, ask the questions, talk to more than one potential advisor, and then select a handful of the ones that you've talked to that you think could be good partners for you to work with. As we mentioned, for us, when we have someone that we work with, we really look at partnering with them. We actually have skin in the game when we work with our customers, our clients. And so their success is our success. And for us, that's really important for them to understand. And it's important for them, when they hire us to do this. Ask for proposals. A proposal is not only giving you an understanding of what fees they're actually going to charge you, but also what it's going to take and what their process looks like, as well as the understanding that they have about your business and the segment that you're in. If you look at what we do, for example, we work in the medical field, right? So anything that has to do with healthcare, this is a highly regulated industry. And we understand that and we know that. And so therefore, when we work with one of our sellers, we understand how to look at, FDA clearance, CE mark, IP, all of those things that take place, things that are not only US related, but also, cross-border. Those are things that if you're not familiar with the segment or the industry, you actually might not pay attention to. And that becomes a problem later on in the process of making the deal. So
in some cases we've been able to help our seller because of the fact that we both have operational experience. And so sometimes in diligence, there'll be questions asked why they do a certain thing from a buyer or from an accountant trying to do some diligence, asking about things that they don't actually understand, but they're doing the diligence. And we can actually help explain why the company would do that because we have the operational background to understand why you would do things a certain way in this medical industry. And that can be helpful to have that understanding from your advisor.
Absolutely. Then the other thing that's really important, you will see that every advisor that makes a proposal to you has a different kind of fees and fee structures. And so really understand what is that going to be for you. Some people ask for upfront fees. Some people have a higher percentage on the deal. And then there is also tail that comes at the end of, of working with an M&A advisor. There are a lot of things that come into one of those agreements. So make sure that you really fully understand the terms and the fee structures. And again, ask questions as you're going forward if there is something that you don't understand, right? Ultimately, you need to sign with somebody that you're going to trust, somebody with whom you've built a relationship, and somebody, as Dave mentioned, that's going to stay involved in your deal and that's going to pass you on to somebody else within the team. It's important because, as I mentioned, ultimately, you and your advisor as a seller will become part of the one team, the same team. You're all working together and for the same purpose and the same goal.
So Florence, I'm going to pause for another question.
Sure.
We have one that says, please discuss the difference in motivation for a financial buyer versus a strategic horizontal / vertical acquirer, and the cultural impact that it could have on your organization. I'll answer the first part, and I know you have a passion about the second part, so I'll let you do the second part of that. So on the first part, in terms of the motivation for a financial buyer versus a strategic type of acquirer, they can be different. Within financial buyers themselves, it used to be there would be similar motivations for financial buyers. So the PE firms had the same model. They go and raise a fund, and they buy a company, they invest in it, they grow it 3 to 5 years, and they turn around and they sell it. And then there still are some companies that are like that. But what's happened over the last 10, and there's nothing wrong with that. It can actually be a good model. And sometimes, especially if they invest in your company, and sometimes they'll give you some equity in the next 3 to 5 years because they want you to help make sure it grows again, and you can make money twice on your own company. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a really good thing. But there are other financial buyers that also buy and hold, and they're really looking for growth and return on profit over year, and then they may stay in something for a long time, and unless it makes strategic sense to sell it for some reason, or somebody comes along to make them an offer they can't refuse. So on the financial buyer, though, there is a tendency more to be oriented towards they have investors in their financial fund that they might have, or their financial company that they might have, and they do have to get a return on that investment for those investors, and that can come in different forms. But their motivation is to make sure that they spend their money wisely. They get a lot of judgment on use of capital and the return on equity. So then how they invest that equity. So it's important to them when they're thinking about the deals that they make. And so they'll if they want to get in and they do want to invest, they can be aggressive about some of the multiples that they'll pay, and it's competitive for financial buyers. However, they're going to be a little more disciplined about it because they do have to make sure that at the end of the day, those investors who are trusting them to use their money wisely are getting that return. With a strategic or a horizontal, a vertical acquirer, a lot of times the value really becomes around that strategic fit and then the timing of that fit. We've had some situations where we were taking a client, and it was a strategic type of deal, and we were talking to small companies that were $50, $100 million kind of companies to acquire the deal, but also to multi-billion-dollar deals. And in one case, the major strategic company had just made a deal in excess of $10 billion, and then they were talking to us about our deal that was less than $100 million. And I actually asked the M&A people, after just doing this multi-billion-dollar deal, I'm just curious as far how this deal looks for you, what your motivation is to do it. And their answer is that quite simply, they don't always do a great job in the strategic companies relative to product pipeline, and they need to feed their salespeople new products. And so, yes, they do have an R&D pipeline. They do bring out some things, but they need more, and they're really great at commercial execution. So often they're just looking for new products to feed their sales channel. So the last part of that, Florence, was the cultural impact, and I'm going to let you answer that.
Sure. It actually could be an entire webinar in itself. So culture is something that very often people actually do not talk about and do not think about. So thank you for asking that question. culture can be a number of different things. It can be when you have a company that's based in one country and then the potential acquirer is another one, right? So you're going to have culture issues, or you're going to have to really understand how to speak the same language when you have two companies that come together if they are located in different parts of the world. But culture can also be something that is more internal culture, and that's also very important. And we work really hard when we work with, our clients to understand the culture that they have, and then the partner that they're going to go with. It's not only just the strategic partnership and where the product fits, but will that company actually understand and be able to grow within that entity? How is the culture of that acquirer, and how is it going to work for the company that is being acquired? And we've seen many examples, either as MedWorld advisors or even when we worked with strategic firms when we were actually on their side. And I can tell you that I've experienced, a number of different issues with regards to culture. So a big, a small company gets acquired by, for example, a private equity firm. That small company has had maybe 20 people that they've been working with for a very, very long time. They're almost like family. All of a sudden, they're put into a private equity firm environment. It's a very different kind of culture, different kind of requirements with regards to performance. Some people at the end of the day will end up not staying, and that has a huge impact on the culture of the people that end up staying there. If you look at it even sometimes from a large company to another strategic company, cultures can also be very different. As Dave mentioned, I work for Draeger, and Draeger acquired a division out of Siemens. You would think it's a German company, go into a German company. Not really a big issue. Nope, it actually is. There were a lot of people who had a lot of, they were very much attached to the culture of their own company. And so to get them to change that culture and adopt somebody else's culture could actually take quite some time. And for some of us, it took actually 2 to 3 years to get some of the key people involved coming in from Siemens to actually really come and be very positive about the culture of Draeger. It's a long process and it takes a lot of time. I hope that answers your question.
Great,
so with that, so I know we're getting short on time, so we're going to try to speed up in some of our next slides, but please continue to ask questions.
So, so in terms of, I think the questions right now, Florence, are coming in really good. So I want to get to them.
Sure.
One of the next questions is the likelihood of selling a not profitable business, and that's actually something that we have done before. Going back to earlier in the webinar, we mentioned that even if you're profitable, it's not always easy to sell your business. It's easier. But so not profitable makes it a little bit more challenging. However, there could be a lot of reasons why you're not profitable. You could be investing in your business to grow, and you're choosing to put the money back into it. So it's really getting the buyer to an understanding of what it is you have that could be of value for their capital to come in and help you to grow your business and to scale your business. But it's really more important about your business is what's the scalability of your business. So if you're not profitable, however, you're scalable and you're showing that, and you've got the IP around it that the investor the buyer can feel good about it. You're in a good market segment, you're in a growth segment. That can be very interesting for it. So it's easier, of course, to get their attention initially when you say you're profitable. However, if you're in the right segment with the right kind of growth, and you can show that in a couple of years there's going to be huge profitability because of the investments you're making today, it's doable. It's for sure. Now, if you're not profitable and you're not growing, then it gets a little more challenging.
Absolutely. We've also worked with startup companies, and as you can imagine, startup companies sometimes don't even generate revenue, so they really are not profitable because they're still very much at the beginning. But as Mativ mentioned, if you're scalable and you're running your company with a good technology that is in need, you definitely have a possibility of selling your business.
And along those lines, on this slide 15, about when you're running your company, don't drop the ball. So one of the key things to do is to make sure that when you're getting into an M&A process, is that you continue to grow your company and to continue to keep, if it is profitable, keep it profitable. If it's not profitable, but make sure that you're not making it less profitable by running this. Until your business is sold, it's not sold. So you always have to run it just like it's not ever going to be sold, because you got to make sure that you take care of the package that's created the value that's creating the interest to begin with. And then with that stated, Florence, I'm going to go to another question.
Sure.
And it's around the minimum company revenues for M&A consideration, which is a great question. And that really can come down to sometimes between the difference between a strategic buyer and a financial buyer. A financial buyer likely will not consider a company without without revenues. However, a strategic buyer will, and we've represented from some clients that were sellers that were early stage companies, pre-revenue, pre-FDA, and be able to sell them and be able to get investment in their company to finish their product, get it to FDA, and get them payments for making these milestones. They get paid at close, they get money to develop, finish the project, and to be able to for regulatory approval, and then milestones for commercialization. So it can be kind of lucrative. You need to be with the right company. It really is around strategic fit and right timing, that you're coming to them and they're having to look at, should I start my own R&D project, or can I go ahead and this project's already way ahead, I can go ahead and just continue it and get into the market quicker. Time to market can be very important for strategic. So you don't necessarily have to have revenue to sell the company, but you have to be in the right place in the right time with the right technology. There needs to be some impetus for it.
Absolutely.
And I guess, Florence, this kind of ties to this slide. In those kind of situations, often there are earnouts that come with it. So that, like I just mentioned, you'll get your money at a value for what you've created at the time of close, but then you also will get some type of earnouts. And the reason for that is there's often in an early stage company that doesn't have revenue, there's often a perception of valuation gap. Somebody has developed a nice technology that's going to save a lot of lives, and so they think it's going to be worth 20 million, 100 million, whatever that amount might be, based upon the market segment that they're in and what the opportunity can be. However, they haven't commercialized the product yet; they have no revenues. And so it's not likely you're going to get $100 million on day one of that, even if that's true. Because a company that's going to come in is going to take it from where it is, and they're going to have to spend the money to go to market, and they're going to take the commercial risk of it. However, they are willing to compensate you for that if they are successful with it, and that can be negotiated a lot of different ways. That can be in terms of licensing, that can be in terms of earnouts based upon regulatory approvals in certain markets. It can be in terms of a certain revenue milestones. It can be a lot of different things as far as that's concerned.
That also applies to companies that have revenues. A company may have currently a portfolio of products, but then they have a very interesting pipeline, but the product is currently in development. It's not commercialized yet. It still has certain milestones to go through, such as getting FDA approvals. That actually creates value, but the value is not there yet. And so the company who's going to buy that specific company wants to make sure that if they are putting extra dollars, on that deal, it is actually going to give them return on their investment. And so they will put those milestones, those earnouts, so that once you actually do pass, for example, FDA, or your product goes through, clinical validation successfully, you actually will get an earnout come through. So it's valid in a number of different scenarios.
And so we have another question about M&A advisor relative to a SPAC, and so it's asking, how does an M&A advisor work with a company's investor relations company? How does an M&A advisor's role change in the case of a SPAC, or does it? So there's probably a couple of parts to that question. So, and it's a chance, obviously, for us to explain the difference between us. Is we are not formal investment bankers. We are certified mergers and acquisitions advisors, and we come out of the corporate world with a lot of experience, and that's why we came out and decided to be certified M&A advisors, and we guys should go through a certification program for that. But we are not investment bankers, which means that we don't handle public transactions. However, so if you need that, you need to talk to an investment banker because they can, and we can help you even find some. We have good friends that are investment bankers. You just need to find the right one, just like an M&A advisor. If you want to go for the public route, if you want to take your company to a SPAC. With that said, that doesn't stop us from selling a company to a public company or selling a company to a SPAC. In fact, some of those, that target list we talked about before, some of those are our best targets is a public company because sometimes they can do a little more value because they can do a higher valuation and still be accretive for them in terms of their acquisition. And also sometimes these SPACs are created with a lot of money put into the pool. And so once that deal is done, they have to figure out how to spend that money wisely around their core mission. So we can help somebody sell their company to a SPAC. We just can't create one that would need to be an investment banker. So I hope that helps.
Good. Are there any other questions, Dave?
Yeah, there's a question about what needs to be done for intangible property. And so I'm assuming they're talking about intellectual property, things like that, and that really becomes around understanding how sticky it is, the market segment it is, how competitive it is in that space, because IP can be worth value, and so some companies, especially, there is a lot of litigation in the healthcare space around intellectual property. So if you can be able to find out that some companies in a battle and they need some of your IP, it can be very interesting for you. It can be kind of lucrative for you. You just need to understand it clearly what you have and what you do not have, because once they get into diligence, they'll really understand that quickly. So you don't want to misrepresent it. You just want to be clear about the value that you have and where you filed it and that it has been approved and that sort of thing, and that becomes helpful for you. And then another question is how do potential buyers look at companies that have been financed via royalty-based financing, non-dilutive revenue, pay investor and royalty payments per product sold from last 5 to 7 years. I think that comes down to a couple of areas. There's a certain value in recurring revenue, and buyers definitely like that. So if you can show that that's going to continue, that's going to be helpful for them. So how you got there? You have to non-dilutive money means that you'd probably have a smaller cap table as far as the number of investors. So that's good because they don't like to deal with a lot of investors that they don't have to. But if your revenue is sticky and it's going to continue to grow for years, there definitely is formulas that these financial buyers will put into that. And then in terms of additional value that can go with it, probably depends on the market segment that they're in. If there's something that you actually is around a product that they actually would like to take on, that can actually add some additional value to it. So I hope that answers that question.
Okay. Any other question?
At the moment, I think we're caught up.
Okay, so I think we're very close to the end of the hour, and I know Elizabeth is coming up again. So we had a number of case studies that we could have discussed, but we had a lot of questions, and thank you so very much, because it means that you actually were interested by the subject matter. So we welcome any questions that you may have. We are putting our information here, so feel free to reach out to us. If you have any questions, feel free to go to our website. There is a way for you to just click and contact us directly. But we thank you very much for the time that you spent with us, and for hopefully learning more about the anatomy of an M&A deal.
And one of the last things that I'll mention is that if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us anytime, email, phone call. We don't charge by the hour. We're happy to develop relationships for 10 years from now, 5 years from now, next month. It doesn't really matter. We like to build relationships, and if we're not the right people, we'll help point you in the right direction. So don't hesitate just to ask us anything.
Absolutely, very true. Thank you. Elizabeth?
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Dave and Florence. I mean, this was a wonderful presentation, and I loved how you guys worked the questions in at the perfect timing with when people had questions. So that was wonderful. I think we did get through all of the questions that came in. And I'd like to thank everyone. I know we did have a couple of people ask if they could get a copy of this your presentation, your PowerPoint afterwards. So we will arrange a download link to send out to the registrants with the PowerPoint once we get it back from Florence and Dave. So there was interest in that. And then I also want to thank our sponsors for today's webinar before we run out of time. Again, it was Big Kaiser Precision Tooling. They're offering a full lineup of high precision cutting tools that are the superior choice for increasing production capacity and quality. Big Kaiser delivers the most accurate and efficient tooling solutions, guaranteed. Sarah Tizzett's Team Cutting Tools, your experts for cutting tools. As a full range supplier, Sarah Tizzett Team Cutting Tools is one of an international leading supplier in the cutting tool industry. Kyocera SGS Precision Tools, KSPT, pioneers of some of the world's most advanced cutting tool technologies resulting from rigorous product, coating, and material testing within KSPT's Global Innovation Center. Makino, an industry leader in machinery design and digital innovation. Makino introduces game-changing solutions for premium performance, producing accurate, high-quality metal cutting and EDM machines. And Reed Supply, a premier provider of more than 40,000 industrial components. Reed Supply serves customers from a variety of industries, including aerospace, automotive, electronics, fixtures, food processing, furniture, medical, packaging, transportation, and more. And just a reminder, you can find all of our upcoming webinars at todaysmedicaldevelopments.com/webinars. And this webinar will be posted on our website on-demand webinars in 5 to 7 days, and everyone registered will get a link to the recording also. So again, Dave and Florence, we really appreciate it. Awesome results from comments are coming in. So we appreciate it, and we appreciate everyone's time today.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Elizabeth.
Okay, everyone have a great afternoon. Bye now.
As well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.